Welcome back. We are finally at the last stage of group formations, which is adjourning. It doesn't really rhyme with forming, storming, norming, performing. It is what it is. As with the previous videos, I'll say it one last time. If you haven't watched those, I encourage you to do so. They do cover foundational material that I will not cover again here. And as with all the other videos, there are some basics we need to consider. They have, adjourning stage has a positive and negative significance that we need to understand. And that is a positive aspect of refocus on whatever is next for that individual, and detachment, which is more difficult for the individual from the current group. So it's a good thing that they're able to refocus. Whether that is an adult child that's getting married, now their focus turns away from their family of origin where they grew up, and it focuses on their new spouse and their life ahead. That's a good thing, right? But at the same time, it's difficult to detach from the family. If it's an office team and somebody is moving away or they're retiring, whatever, it's good to be able to refocus from the work they used to do and now focus ahead to their new life. But it can be difficult to detach from people with whom you have worked for months, years, whatever. Same thing on social teams. So again, it can be helpful to reflect back on times where we have ended our role in a neighborhood, family, work, social group. If you're struggling now with refocusing or detaching, or you have another member in your group that's struggling with that, it can be helpful for you to reflect back on when you did that well, or even when you didn't do it well and what you learned from that. That's going to help you, again, to have a softer heart toward other people in your group that are struggling with that, and it's going to bring to your mind some things that you did well or you wish you'd done differently the last time. It'll help you get through. Third dynamic to remember is that, again, effective strategies must recognize, enable, and reward as appropriate both the positive and the negative. We're going to look at some specific strategies that I think can enable that. But again, just as a reminder before we do, it needs to be both the positive of refocus and the negative of detachment. Both need to be recognized and worked through. We can do this by recognizing achievements of the group and members individually and their hopes for the future. So to articulate verbally, in writing, in other ways, in public, in private, what they did as part of the group and what they're going to do in the future. So that recognizes their past contributions, and by your articulating that with your hopes for their future, or asking them about their future, it kind of draws a line. We're coming to an end here. Thank you so much for what you did. Don't lie. Don't thank them for things they didn't do. Don't exaggerate some things they did okay and say that they were fantastic. Focus on the things that they really did well. If they didn't have the best skills, but they were really loyal, they were really approachable, they were really a hard worker, say those things, because you want to leave with a good taste in your mouth and them to have a good taste in their mouth that, hey, they understood me, they were grateful for who I was in this group. And then talk with them or ask them about their future plans and help them to focus on the positive for their future plans so that they're not looking back to the past. We really can't have that older son or daughter who is now married or out on their own to act like they're still living at home. They need to be able to live their own life. We can't have that retiree or somebody who's moved away to continue to come back to the office all the time or call back. It may be fine to maintain friendships, but it's not healthy if they need to move into a separate new future for their life, but they're still living in the past. It's like driving, looking in your rearview mirror. You can't do both well unless you're in reverse. I guess you can do that, but we don't want to live life in reverse, right? So another strategy we can do is to, as appropriate, express tangible thanks that also identify the end of the group. Beyond just articulating or verbalizing those things, you can put it on a plaque, you can put it on a card, you can get somebody a little medallion, whatever is appropriate for your group, something to hang on their wall, something physical for them to remember that they were appreciated and did well in this group, again, symbolizing that their part in this group has come to an end, and that will help them and you make that clean break. Now, what do you do if you're coming to the end and you don't receive that tangible thing? That's hard. There's a lot of different reasons that can happen. Not everybody, if you're familiar with the love languages, 5 different love languages, not everybody has the love language of gifts, meaning not everybody values receiving something tangibly. If your boss or your parent or your neighbor doesn't give you something, it could simply be because gifts are not meaningful to them. They wouldn't necessarily want to receive it, and so they don't give it. That's not necessarily a good excuse, but it could be the reason. Another reason could be because groups can be so busy and so intense that we get caught up in the demands of now, and we don't plan well for people who are leaving. We quite often don't say goodbye well. That's one of the reasons we need to plan for the stage of adjourning, and not last minute either. We need to be aware when people are leaving and to help them leave successfully. One of the things my wife and I did with our boys is we gave them lots of responsibilities around the house so that when they left, they could cook their own meals, they could wash their own clothes, they could pay their own bills, they could get themselves up from the bed, they could show up to work on time, all those types of things, which to them felt like a little bit of a burden for a teenager. Why is mom and dad making us do this? They're supposed to make our lives comfortable, aren't they? Well, we try to do that too, but we wanted them to leave successfully and leave well and not feel like we had kicked them to the curb and now they just have to find out how to survive. Similarly, we want to prepare others to leave well. Now, it doesn't necessarily equate to treating them like a teenager, but you get the idea. There has to be some preparation so that folks can depart with a clean break where everybody feels good about that departure. Thirdly, we can choose and name specific venues for any future connections. If you're going to maintain connections on social media, occasional visits, phone calls or whatever, think about what's realistic, what's mutually agreeable. State what is mutually agreeable and realistic. Don't state things you're not going to follow through on. Don't state things that are unrealistic and don't make sense. Don't feel obligated that you have to maintain a connection the way other people in the group maintain a connection. Some people in a group will be closer to other members than you will, and vice versa. Some won't be as close. Some will be more able to make connections because they have that same venue of social media and you don't, or they live closer to wherever that person's moving than you do. All relationships don't have to look the same, but it can be very helpful to talk with individuals, especially if you've had a close relationship, and say, hey, I'm going to miss you. Kind of like to stay in touch, but I don't know what's realistic. What do you think? And brainstorm some ideas together. That, again, will help people to leave feeling good about each other, that there is going to be a relationship. You've talked mutually about what it's going to look like, and you've got a specific plan so that, again, they're not looking back as they move away, and they're able to move away more effectively. Lastly, to maintain healthy and reasonable boundaries for respect and separation. If you or the other person begins to be more assertive to maintain that connection than the other person wants, that's a breach of boundaries. That is treating that person like they're still a member of the group, and it doesn't help them move on. It can be hard to let go and to say goodbye or to hear goodbye from others, but we simply have to do it. We talk about cutting the apron strings, so the child can leave. Same thing with somebody from your office or somebody from your neighborhood. Saying goodbye is a sad thing, but it's not always a bad thing. It's part of any group. Remember, as I close this, that speaking of groups, that we are all members of many types of groups. You're a member of a family, you're a member of a work team, you're a member of a neighborhood, you're a member of social teams, and you're always in different stages. Even if you're not just forming or storming or norming or adjourning, you're in a group with somebody else who is. So you're always in a group that's going through something, and the strategies have to fit that person in the stage where they are. That takes self-awareness, that takes being intentional, that takes some planning, and takes a little bit of effort. But if we put forth that effort with the insights we have, it'll be a win-win for the individual and the group, for the progress toward the goal and the relational trust. Hope this series has been helpful to you. God willing, in the future, I will offer other series on other topics, and I hope to see you then.